Here we are at Ironworks Speed and Custom for this month's shop update. Last month we unveiled the 1935 Chevrolet Coupe that we've been working on for many years. We unveiled it at the Grand National Roadster Show in Pomona, California. The car went over great. We accomplished everything we had set out to do and probably more. The deadline of just things that came up at the end really made it difficult to finish everything, but the guys got everything done. Everything was together. We don't have to bring the car back and take it all apart and make everything actually work. The car is actually ready to work and be used for those things. The difficulty comes in is when you build a car to that kind of level of what are you really going to use it for? And so we're going to show it a few more times. We're going to do some concourse events, a couple other shows, and just work on really showing off the hard work and dedication of the employees, the subcontractors, the parts vendors, and the vision of the that the customer originally had with the car from the beginning. So everyone thinks when you finish the big hustle that it's over with. Well, the problem with the big hustle is, yes, the big hustle is over on the 35 Chevy. Now it's back to everyone else. But everyone else who's been like, hey, you need to work on my car. Hey, when are we gonna, let me get this car done. Let me get this car done. Let me get this car done. Then everybody's like, hey, it's my turn. You're like, well, it's your turn and his turn and his turn and his turn. So now we can kind of get back on some of the more steady projects we've been working on and get those things ready to get towards the finish line. So here we have the Roadster Shop RS Ford chassis, 1987 crew cab short bed truck. It's got a Don Hardy version of a Godzilla motor. It's a 6.6 liter motor that is meant to be a stump pulling torque monster, because all the other guys that are building Godzillas, the owner of this one just couldn't put himself to own a Ford. So Don Hardy built us this 6.6. We found out there's a few differences in the, what is it, the L8P or L8T engine that's in these, of just a few brackets and bungs that are on the engine that are in slightly different positions. So we had to do a little machine work on the alternator bracket and get everything else fitted into the car. So we're now back on that. We've got the BBT firewall panel that's in this thing. We've got the inner fenders cut and trimmed around to go here. We've been working on getting the sides of the truck sheet metal flat when you look down the side of the car. So it's just we're not trying to make a show car out of it, but we don't want to see four ripples, because a lot of these cars have a ripple that goes here, and then it would be here, and then there, and then down the bedside. And so we're just trying to take some of those lumps out of the truck so that the paint job just looks a little better. We're not trying to gap and fit and finish and make this thing absolutely perfect. We just want to make it respectable. So we've got all the bumpers on the truck. We're getting ready. We've made upper radiator mounts to kind of customize the engine bay just a little bit that are coming. At this point, just getting all the mechanicals in the car and getting it ready to go to the paint shop. Here we are with Roger Holder's 1967 Chevelle. We've finally got all the chassis powder coated, reassembled, humongous fuel lines, everything kind of set in underneath. We've undercoated the bottom of the car, and we've painted the bare metal stuff on the interior of the car. The body's on the chassis for final, and our intention is to install all the wiring and plumbing that we previously laid out in the car here in the coming weeks and get this car ready to be driven. Those of you that have been asking for a while, we've finally pulled the trigger on our first set of 10 1966-67 carbon fiber and fiberglass inner fender wells. We're taking pre-orders on our website if you're interested in some of those. The first batch of 10 will probably be available in about 3 weeks. We're waiting for the manufacturer to be ready with a new router that he has to machine these things out of a little different foam than we've done before, that is capable with this new router that he has. And that'll allow us to start selling those. So if you're interested, you should get them. They're already taking them up on the pre-orders on our website. We're gonna do 10 to get started with. We have a little bracket that makes it's either the 66 to the 67 or vice versa, that allows you to go either way, that it will adapt it to the core support from one to the other. And so it'll fit in there and allow it to fit on a Roadster Shop or a SpeedTech chassis with this ride height, with the tire width that the chassis would allow to fit. So act fast. The other part is we'll just get all the parts that we have made and put in the car. We've got a little body work to do on the underside of the hood. We've got some paint correction to do that will have the car kind of cleaned up and detailed, and just try to get this thing fire breathing. When we get the inner fenders, we're going to finalize the ride height on the car, hoping to get right here or even a little lower in the front. Roger's expressed that he would like the car to be as low and badass as he can get it. And so we're trying to get the ride height down on this car, and then we'll order the shocks to accommodate that ride height. At the same time, we're going to replace the vents in the hood to machine some other vents to go in it that will allow just the heat to extract from the engine bay to change the air intake temperatures in the engine bay of the car. Other than that, we're still kind of fine-tuning what shifter is going to go in the car, what parts of the seats and the interior that was existing in the car we're going to keep and what we're not going to keep. And from there, we're hoping here in, I don't know, April maybe, to have this thing breathing fire. I'm really excited to hear what 1,200 horsepower in a LS actually sounds like. So from there, you can see the car's, it's looking good. Forge line wheels, Willwood brakes, Michelin tires, Speedtech chassis. It's really coming together. It sits good. It sits low. We moved the fuel tank filler up here into the trunk so that Roger doesn't have to bend over and refuel it. We left, as you can see, we left all the original insulation that was in the car in it and just accommodated around where we needed to make changes. Here we are with Delesh's 1978 Mercedes. This car we've been doing a lot of coverage on, showing a lot of the pretty intricate stuff that we've been allowed to build on this car, from the rear bumpers, the rear valence, the front bumpers, the lower front valence. We've started the CAD design on the interior that'll be made from carbon, billet, machine PVC, a lot of different products inside for the door panels, the dash, the center console, all those types of things to really take this car to the next level. We designed all the engine bay stuff to kind of hide the fact that it's got a transplant LT4 10-speed that we put in here for the reliability, the power, and the California emissions satisfaction, because they apparently won't let us put a Mercedes V12 in it without being smog legal in California. And Holly doesn't have a wiring harness for a Mercedes V12 yet either. So we've decided to put this in here to make everyone happy. And I'm sure once you put Delesh behind the wheel of this thing, the LT4 will do just that. So at this point, we've been laying out a new blower cover, a new coil covers. We made a transition piece that we called a throttle body cover to kind of give the engine bay, which we can show you some of the images of what the engine bay will look like in the CAD renderings that we have. We made these closeout panels to kind of cover up the air intake on each side and allow the air to come in under the hood and also go to the air filter on this side. You've seen all the videos with the lower front valence. We've got a lot of that stuff off, getting prepped for the first stage of body work. We're getting ready to tear the rest of the car down and get all the original paint that's on this car off and get the car into epoxy primer to start getting ready for reassembly. Currently, we have a pretty good lead on a really good spot at SEMA, but due to a leadership change at the company, they may not be doing a booth at SEMA. So if you'd be interested in having a four-door 1978 Mercedes that might be the wildest car you've ever seen in your booth, be sure to hit us up and let us know. We're just working on a few spots, a few potential spots for that. Other than that, I can show you some of the renderings of the direction we're going with the interior. George is doing a bang-up job of just incorporating new Mercedes vibe into the old Mercedes, and how we're going to make the new gauge cluster. We've put the old gauge cluster in here just to get a relative idea of where the gauges should be based on the seating position in the car for the customer. Here we are at the rear of Delesh's Mercedes. As you can see, we've got the bumpers set in place. We've now welded the outside piece of the bumper to the inside piece of the bumper. We also did the same with the trim to get all that stuff fitting properly. But as you move further down the car, you'll see where we have our 3D printed exhaust tips that we currently have at the machine shop, making them out of aluminum. We've TIG welded the stainless transitions that go in here. And then this section here will all be black coated. So the bumpers will be chrome, the rubber will look like rubber, and the lower section down here will be black. You can see there's backup lights in here and just a few other purpose-built details into it to make it fit to the stock car. This project is a great example for all you guys who want to know how much to do an LS swap. This car came in to upgrade the drivetrain and just make a fun weekend cruiser that maybe he'll take the top off once in a while, but he just wants to enjoy it. Now, most of our customers are fairly detail orientated and want things to be nice. And so that's where the snowball starts to roll. As you can see, the frame is out from underneath this truck because we decided that if the top of if he's going to care about how the finish of the firewall is and those things, that we're so close, we might as well just pull the chassis out from underneath it, remove the 8 bolts that hold the leaf springs on for the stock chassis, and powder coat it. So here we have the chassis. It's been powder coated. We cleaned up a few things on it. But once again, the intention of this car is just to make it a fun driver. It's got a LT1 with a 10-speed automatic with an Atlas transfer case now. It's not meant to have humongous tires. As you can see, it's just got 33-inch tires on it. Just a little over stock. We put a crossover suspension on it to get rid of the lame bump steer inducing steering setup that's over here and go to the crossover steering, and we'll clean up the axles when they're under the car. And then we have a nice stainless tank from Rick's that will go on here. We've installed Willwood brakes to kind of up the braking a little bit. We're doing a Tesla booster setup to go behind a Willwood master cylinder to put in the engine bay and just try to make the engine bay as clean as possible. You can see all the cross members were done at the same time to make a match. And so now we will drop all of that stuff back into this chassis, put the engine and drivetrain in it, and paint the firewall in that car, filling a few holes that just the customer wanted to fill to make those right, and put the rest of the truck together to do an LS swap. So here's the LT1 motor that's going in Steve's Blazer. It's got a Wagner front drive system. We had to change the oil pan to clearance with the differential if he was to ever bottom out the suspension in the front. It's got a 10-speed automatic from Bowler. It's got an Atlas transfer case to go behind that as well. And so this will go in the truck and allow it to just give us the look we want, give us the reliability. We really love how these 10-speed shift. So just the performance of them is just great. You don't have that big lunk as the converter locks up when it goes into gear. It's really neat how you feel the shifts in the earlier gears, and then it just kind of disappears as it cuts power and shifts, just like your new cars. And so we're trying to do the same thing in this Blazer for Steve. So when Steve brought this car in, it took me a little bit to realize these little sheet metal screws that are in this trim from the factory are stock. And I was like, man, that looks like my brother Daryl screwed that on there because the clip wasn't going to work after it was painted. And as you look on the car or truck, you can move forward and see that the doors have the same issue. Nice little sheet metal screw that Daryl put on, another little sheet metal screw that Daryl put on, some more screws that Daryl put on. The other thing we did is we're like, man, this trim fits like boots on a rooster or whatever you want to call it. And so we ordered some new trim. It was still short. It still had the screws in there from Daryl, the holes. And the customer was like, yeah, that's just not working for me. I got this nice Blazer that I want to just haul my grandkids around in and have some fun in, and it's not going to work. Well, here we present you with brand new trim that don't have the sheet metal screws, that fit around the different parts and pieces of the car, They've been contoured to fit the different parts and pieces on the car. This one goes up on the front fender. I'm sure these wrap around the body here. So as you can see, and we've set these up to trim tape them on the car with 3M adhesive tape. And we're getting ready to fit that on the car here soon. And so we can have these polished. And then we will vinyl cut stickers to go inside here to make them fit precisely. And so this is a patina car that's been PPF'd that has billet trim on it. When we're working on a car for a customer, there's a point in time where sometimes people would let certain items that are available in the marketplace limit the results of what they're doing. For us, instead of trying to fiddle fart with the trim, make it longer, do whatever you're gonna do, repolish it, do all these other things and just live with it, it was just easier for us to sidestep the trim and move into something like this that we can make a little long. We can design one side for this side of the truck and mirror it over and machine a pair to get the other side. And so we're not limited by what's just in the market. And so in doing this, we're able to satisfy what the customer wants in a fairly effective manner. When you consider if you were to chrome this trim, it would save you a ton of money over trying to rechrome stainless, because it just gets to the end result quicker, but it also allows you to just have that fitment that you want or the style that you want. There was even discussion that we might add some script in here that says Steve's Blazer or do something like that, but he didn't want that type of stuff in there. But that becomes an option when you start thinking like that. And so in the coming months, you will see us finish assembling this truck and get it back together, put the trim on it, and we'll be able to go over what the purpose of the car is. And there's just some things like this that customers like to do that are fun, but also raises the detail of the car.
So we're here with Daryl's Nova. As you can see, we got a little bit of stuff going on in the front end and kind of just working on some design features. So initially, the Chevelle cowl was cut into this hood, but with the new Legacy Series Chevelle hood coming out, Roger wanted to add a little bit more aggressive and more modernness to the hood. But this transition area just isn't quite it yet. So that's kind of what we have mocked up here right now, is just this front corner of the hood. So we can kind of get a rough idea of what it's going to look like with the new headlight surrounds and the new grille insert. As you can see on this insert, we're going to have an actual opening that's going to feed air, because at some point we're going to get our intake tube in and then ran down and past our inner fender. So that's going to get constant fresh air. You can see George also got us our adapter printed. So we kind of got that mocked up right now and going to be getting that intake tube and figured out here pretty soon. So then if we transition over to the doors, last time we were working on the new window regulators and tracks and all that, and we now finally got that pretty solid. As you can see, these windows aren't really going anywhere, and that's just the tracks that are in there now with the new modern window regulators. We're also working on the door seal between the rear glass and then the actual glass on the door. Just kind of getting some stuff mocked up so that we have an idea of what we got to do to make that actually function. And the majority of the work recently has been in the rear. So we kind of spent some time working on those exhaust tips for a while. I had some other stuff mocked up before we got it all cut out. But now we kind of came up with a final solution. These are still just the printed parts, but it's now cut into the bumper. So you're going to have this portion that's molded into the bumper, and this tip is going to be bolted to the exhaust. And then I was working on some fit up stuff because this bumper just wasn't fitting right. I had horrible gaps. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot closer than what it was. And then before, we had just the aluminum template on here of what this kind of beauty plate's going to be below the deck lid. So this is the final CNC portion. Right now we just have this black insert in here. It's just some sheet metal that's painted black, but that'll be carbon in the final product. And then when you swing over to the inside, we made some supports to keep this back panel nice and sturdy. So if you look between the filler neck, on both sides you have these just kind of screwed in there for now until we get the trunk lid all situated, because we still need to come up with our lock. So this bumper still has a little bit of finishing work to go on it. As you see, we still have the bolts. Those will be shaved when it's all said and done, once everything's tucked and has proper gaps all the way around. And then we all know you guys love these aluminum windows that we really want to keep, but I think we'll do some actual glass when it's all said and done.